I'm Norman Ward for Miami Springs TV Productions, and this is the 6th in our series of articles about ham radio. I'm K4RBR, and I'm the emergency coordinator for Dade County for the American Radio Relay League. In some of our other series, we've seen some other aspects of ham radio. We've seen satellite, television, digital radio, operating under different circumstances in a high-rise, and many other things. Tonight we're going to be looking into the club aspect of ham radio. We're visiting here at the Dade Radio Club. The Dade Radio Club is the oldest radio club in Dade County, possibly in Florida. And we're going to be seeing how the club operates, some of their projects. We're going to be talking with Evelyn Gosens. Her husband Carl was the predecessor and the founder of this club. And we're going to be also talking with Jerry Crawford. He's the trustee of the club radio station. They have a beautiful station here. This is located at the Museum of Science in Dade County. And the club meets every first Tuesday of every month at 7:30. And anyone interested in amateur radio, anyone who's already an amateur or who would like to become an amateur, is invited to come and attend the meeting. So let's look in on the Dade Radio Club.
Right, have we moved to make life easier for someone, but I can't remember.
We can do Tuesdays. How about, we'd like it towards the end, we did 20th or 27th. Does anybody have any problem with that? Which one, 20th or 27th?
Okay.
Yeah, so 27th, and then that gives us a couple of weeks before the meeting, which will be on the 4th of October. So it's not 4th.
Oh.
7:30.
Okay. EOC on the 20th.
That's right. The EOC.
7:30 p.m.
7:30 sounds good. At the EOC.
Does the EOC provide us as nice of refreshments as John Hall does?
Oh yes.
Club pays for refreshments. So
I don't.
somebody has
That's
to buy it.
not the point. That isn't the point.
Right.
20 pounds. Sandra. I will make sure it's John's coffee decaf. All right, and I'll have Sandra make the coffee. Although Sandra don't do as good as Neil does, but
you better hope the sound was off on that video camera.
Yeah, I don't have a badge on, so nobody knows who I am.
Oh, nobody knows who that was.
we're all traveling inside. Okay, that about covers it. Yes, Paul.
Well,
No, we have a very important thing I wish we would discuss, and that was what I heard in the minutes. Was Paul's talking about the summit, yes. We don't have much time to get ready for that if we don't organize it right now.
yeah, you have backed it up in terms of getting into QST, and you've got to...
I will see that coverage gets into QST on it, but we must get something definitive for me to write about.
Well, it's like the 15th of September that has to go in order to be in.
Yes, it would be in the November issue, which would be the only timely issue for it to be in. It has to be in by the September 15th to the 18th.
Okay, well, I'll say you can use, if you want, you can use the EOC to run information back and forth for it.
Well, it depends on
Or how we set it up. I don't know how we're going to set it
We
up.
vote to do it. Will you
You've got to
take care of
organize
it?
something.
There has to be some sort
Depends
of...
on
for a committee.
I mean, what you want to do. I mean, my objective is to get some visibility, positive visibility for amateur radio. It may be an entirely bad idea, I don't know, but this is a unique event here in Miami, and I thought the idea of 10 or 15 contacts in Dade County for a certificate might be one way to go.
That's the easy way to go.
Right. The special event station has a certain blitz to it, but it's more complicated. And it may not be worth the effort to try to do a special event.
But this sounds real easy. I mean, you don't have to leave home, and but somebody has to do the paperwork.
Right, and the only person that has a difficult time is proving that the operator, confirming the contacts that they were in Dade County, and sending out the QSL cards or the certificate.
We're here in the radio room of the Dade Radio Club, which is located at the Museum of Science in Miami, Florida. And I'm here with Jerry Crawford. Jerry, good evening.
Hi, Norm. How are you?
Good. And you've been a ham for how long?
Well, I almost hate to admit that I've been a ham for over 33 years.
Well,
I started at a very tender age.
I believe it. I'm in the same boat. I started very young, too. And what's your amateur call, Jerry?
K7UPJ.
Okay. And here with the Dade Radio Club, what is your main function here with the club?
My main function with the club is to have a good time.
Oh, good.
And along with that, we do a number of different activities as well as provide some public service. One of the major activities that we do is to train and help train new people to become amateur radio operators. We participate in a number of operating events. We have a major convention every year in February to help support the club, support its activities, get new people interested in amateur radio.
We mentioned at the beginning of the show that this is the oldest radio club in Dade County, possibly in Florida, and yet we were down looking at the meeting going on, noticed a lot of young people there.
Yes, we're fortunate that we have a wide spectrum of people who are participating. We recently had an operating event called Field Day, in which we had a number of people participating in the operation, 24-hour operation, and we probably had at least a dozen younger amateurs and their friends who got involved, and they were very excited in the operation. Had a good time and learned a lot.
Well, great. As a matter of fact, we filmed the Field Day event down at the Emergency Operations Center, and we saw a lot of those young people when we were there. Also went down to Homestead and a few other places to see them in operation. Well, tell us a little bit about the station here. It was really very impressive looking.
We're very fortunate that the Dade Radio Club, having been around so long and having so many members supporting it throughout the years, along with the Tropical Jamboree, has enabled the club to get a lot of support for its activities and the equipment that we've gathered throughout the years. And amateur radio is a very diverse hobby that supports a lot of different kinds of things that people do associated with the use of radios. People do everything from talking with these little handhelds here direct to each other through things that we call repeaters that enable somebody with these little handhelds to talk over many miles, to people using satellite communications over satellites that are put up by amateur radio operators, and even such things as television. Those go beyond what the normal scope of what people might consider to be the shortwave radio part of ham radio. And there are those of us who participate very actively in the shortwave part of it. The club station that we have here has a variety of equipment that is primarily focused on the shortwave aspect of amateur radio communication, but also has some other capabilities, and we're planning on expanding those capabilities to include the different kinds of operations such as the amateur satellite capabilities and the higher what we call VHF and UHF bands and digital communications using a new technique called packet radio operation. What we have here in front of us is a very, very capable high-frequency radio or shortwave radio. This is made by a company called Yaesu, and it's a model is an FT1000, and we communicate with this worldwide. We have the capability with the antenna that we have on the roof of the museum here to communicate throughout the United States, into the Caribbean, down to South America, and across to all the other continents. We have worked all the continents in the world from the radio station here with this equipment, and it's a very capable piece of equipment that can be operated not only on voice but also on Morse code. We use this little key here to communicate by Morse code, and the microphone to communicate by voice. It has the capability of operating on all the amateur radio bands in the shortwave radio spectrum, which goes from 1.8 megahertz, which is above the broadcast band, up to 30 megahertz, which is the bottom end of the high-frequency radio spectrum. We also have a high-power amplifier here that can be used on those rare occasions when we want to be able to put out a stronger signal, such as if we're in an emergency operation and we want to make sure that our signal is heard over a wider area in order to make sure that emergency communications goes through. We can use the amplifier there.
Now, when you say the amplifier that takes this signal and boosts it up, well, what kind of power are we talking about?
The kind of power that we have available from this equipment here is 200 watts, which doesn't sound like a whole lot when you compare that your light bulbs that you use in your house might be 100 watts, but that 200 watts is enough on many occasions to go out over thousands of miles. This amplifier...
Oh, self-exciting.
Self-exciting. This amplifier has the capability of boosting the 200 watts that we have here up to 1,000 watts.
Well, I know in traveling years ago up in the mountains, there are many small radio stations in the mountains that didn't run that much power.
That's true. That's true.
Okay, now you mentioned working these people. That means making a two-way contact between some country on the other side of the world. And
as well as the different modes of operation and the different things that people do in amateur radio, there are different kinds of contacts that people make as well. There are some people that get on the air in what we call nets, which is groups of amateurs that get together at the same time, same day of the week, sometimes every day, and talk with each other about the weather, or they pass messages among each other. There are some people that are out on boats that have regular nets that they get together every day and pass information about each other and what they're doing and what their weather conditions are like. There are other people that get on and just like to have a good conversation with somebody, and they'll get on and they'll talk an hour or more with people in far off locations, or sometimes near not too far away, but some place that you wouldn't normally just pick up the telephone and call. Then there are those people who get into more exotic forms of communication whose emphasis is on being able to contact people in far distant locations. This is what we call working distant locations, is working DX. And they may not have a long conversation with somebody. They may just say hello to somebody in China, for example, and just to be able to say a few words back and forth to make the contact. And then there's another different form of activity in amateur radio known as contesting. And in these contests, there are people whose objective is to talk to as many people during the period of the contest that they can. Sometimes these contests are international in nature, and sometimes they're just within the United States. And very often, people who make these contacts like to make confirmation of the contacts afterwards, and they use these things called QSL cards. QSL means a confirmation. This is my QSL card that I have since I've lived in Miami. I have another one from when I was previously in Maryland before I moved down here. And I've also operated from Europe, where I had different call signs, DA1ET and ON8UA and DA2CY, so I have different QSL cards from there. These are some of the QSL cards that we have here.
These are from this station, these cards here?
Well, they're actually cards that I have gathered, but we have similar ones for
Right.
I just happened to pick these up here, and this is a stack of them from all over the world. This is some polar bears from Greenland. This is a very simple QSL card, but it's a little unusual in that it's from Suzhou, China, and that's not a very common place to be contacting. This is from Leningrad. This is from Gibraltar, and this is from uninhabited island normally called Desistcheo Island that some people went to in order to say that they could make radio contacts from there. So there's some people who collect thousands of these QSL cards from all over the world.
Okay, now, this station, any member of the club could come up here and operate this station and work, make contact with these people?
That's correct. Our objective is to have people utilize the facilities that the club has put together, and we have training available, and we like to get people checked out so we know that they know how to operate the equipment, and once they get checked out, then they are eligible to come use the station anytime that they want to.
So this would be a great benefit for someone, for example, might live in a condominium, they're not able to have a station in their place there, or they can't afford one for that matter, then they could come here and operate.
Absolutely. And another thing that we have is the operating activities. So far, most of these operating activities have been associated with a contest type of activity, such as the field day, which is a combination of sort of a contest and sort of an emergency preparedness operation, and a few other get-togethers and training sessions for people to operate the equipment and participate in operating events.
Okay.
When I was a boy, amateur radio sparked my interest in science. I spent the next 20 years studying radio signals from distant stars to help test and confirm Einstein's theory of gravity. For that work, I won the Nobel Prize. Whether you want to be a physicist or just make a lot of new friends, a technician class amateur radio license can help you discover new worlds. It's fun and it's easy to do. So go for it. You never know who you'll meet on the air.
Okay, Jerry, how about telling us a little bit about these objects here?
Sure, I'd be glad to. This is the radio, and we have some accessories connected to the radio to provide the input to it and make it work. This is what's called a key that we use to transmit Morse code, and there are different kinds of keys. And some people enjoy Morse code because the challenge of it and because it's sort of the traditional old-time radio thing. And this kind of key is an electronic key or actuator where we push it in one direction and we'll send dits, and we push it in the other direction and it'll send DAWs, and to do that together we go like, and we can change the speed of it with the key or speed control, which is on the radio here. The other way to send Morse code is with the classic hand key, such as we have here. And when we use that, we turn off the electronic here, and we actuate the Morse code by going up and down on the keyer here. This is another version of the same kind of keyer. And this is an older mechanical type keyer, which is called a bug. And with this kind of keyer, it has a spring-loaded device here which would make dits for you almost automatically, and then you press it to the other side and it makes dashes. So this was the forerunner, the mechanical forerunner to what became the electronic keyer such as we have here. This is a microphone that we use with the voice operation of it. There are many different kinds of microphones. Some you hold in your hand, they're very small, like this one here connected to the little handheld, and some are fancier and are like this, and you can even have them attached to a headset to put on your head. Sometimes you see the sportscasters on television with what's called a boom microphone attached to the headset. And with this kind of operation, we push down on this switch here on the microphone, and that actuates the voice operation on the radio. To be able to hear what's happening, we have a speaker up on top of the workbench here that we can listen to, or we can use the classical headphones such as we have these headphones here that we can put on like this and plug into the front of the radio, just like listening to a stereo with headphones or whatever.
Well, if you have a lot of people in the room when you're operating, everybody can hear over the speaker, but if it's noisy conditions or whatever, you put on the earphones.
This is a special kind of device here, which is a little difficult to see. It's hidden back there. This is a interface device for a computer that we can attach the computer to the radio here and have computerized control of the radio, and you can use the computer to control the radio, and vice versa. You can read the settings on the radio on the computer. And the club has recently purchased a computer, and the next time you come to visit, we'll show you computerized control of the radio.
Boy, that sounds really great. What are these other objects here. Now these other radios, what do they do?
This is a smaller radio. Believe it or not, this radio and this radio do the same thing.
Wow.
The difference is that this radio is smaller, more compact, doesn't have quite as much power as this one, doesn't have quite the same level of capability in terms of the things that it can do with being able to store frequencies in memory and to have two different frequencies. For example, on this radio here, you see it has one tuning knob and one display for the frequency.
Right.
This radio, which is a very high-class radio, has two frequency displays and two tuning knobs, and we can set frequencies in these two areas and jump back and forth from one to the other. And this one has more knobs because it has a lot more special features, but the basic capability of the two radios are about the same. They're both shortwave radios, and you can use both of them to talk around the world with the right kind of antenna and the right kind of knowledge. This over here is used for radio teletype. Radio teletype is a means of sending information in character form back and forth from a keyboard, such as we have here, similar to a typewriter keyboard or a computer keyboard. And instead of people listening to each other talk or listening to Morse code, you type on the keyboard and it will show up on a screen like a computer screen. This happens to be a very small one. And this is a speaker for this radio. This is the microphone for this radio. Over on the other operating area, we have some additional capabilities. This is another high frequency or shortwave radio, which is used for communicating long distances. This is a device called an antenna tuner, which we use sometimes when we're using wires or some other antennas that need to be set up so that they will operate properly with our radios. We use that antenna tuner. And this radio here is what's known as an ultra-high frequency or UHF radio. This is basically used for a transmission to a fairly short range area or over a longer area using a repeater where you transmit to the repeater and then the repeater sends a signal out to a further distance.
Is this the same as that up there?
That's the same kind of radio. The only difference is that they're for different frequency bands. We have several different frequencies which can be used by amateur radio operators in the very high frequency and ultra high frequency spectrum. This one happens to be for the range of 145 megahertz, and this is for the range of around 440 megahertz.
Now, all of this equipment is open to any member of the club. If they're a member in good standing and they've been checked out on the operation of it, they can
That's correct.
Okay. Now, you mentioned earlier about contesting. I understand there's going to be a contest or some kind of a special event the club is going to be participating in soon?
Yes, we're planning on a couple of operating events, and we have very good working relationships with the Amateur Radio Public Service Corps and setting up for emergency events and so forth. So sometimes we have operating events from the Dade County Emergency Operations Center. A large reason for having those operations is to make sure that we're all prepared to be able to communicate from there in the event of an emergency requirement for communications. And that's what we did during our field day operation. We intend to continue using that location as well as the club station here for future events. And there are some upcoming contests that we're going to participate in. And then in December, there's a very large conference of the presidents of all the South American, Latin American, and U.S. that is going to be taking place in Miami in the second week of December. And during that conference, the club is going to be operating a special event station. The purpose of this special event station is to attract attention to amateurs throughout the world to the conference which is going on during that period of time. And for those amateurs who contact the special event station, we'll be sending them a certificate confirming they're working the special event station to commemorate this very important occasion.
So that is an incentive both for the individual to seek you all out, and it serves a benefit of getting the name of the group and the activities on the map.
Yes, indeed. It also gives an opportunity for the club members to get together, to learn more about operating together, to have an operational capability that they have a chance to practice and work with others in communicating.
This is somewhat different from the picture of a small radio station and a little crowded, dark room of the times past. The ham radio has really come a long way. I guess you've seen a lot of changes.
The radios have gotten smaller and they've gotten a lot more capable, and some of the capabilities that we have nowadays would be unheard of years ago. The capability to connect a radio to a computer and have the computer control the radio is 20 years ago people would not have thought possible. We have digital communications capabilities such as packet radio now, where we connect a computer to a radio and communicate with other computers using the radio, which was unheard of 15 and 20 years ago. The capability to work through amateur radio satellites has been tremendous growth over the past 20 years that when I first started in amateur radio was totally unknown and wouldn't have been thought possible.
I believe that. Just a minute, young lady. We have someone here who just came in the door of the shack, Evelyn. We call this a shack. It's all this sophisticated equipment here. Evelyn Gauzens, who's the Vice Director of the American Radio Relay League for the Southeastern Division, is going to kill me, but she just joined us here. Come on in here, Evelyn.
I was just trying to keep Jerry's stuff from being locked out.
Well, we appreciate that. Come over here just a minute. We were talking with Jerry, and we were saying about what a fantastic club this is and what a fantastic station, and you better than anyone else in this club could tell something about the history of it.
Well, I've been here 43 years. I guess so. We're going to celebrate our 50th year of affiliation with the American Radio Relay League in 1996. And I've been around, not the whole time, but for 43 years, and seen the club grow from a small little club with a handful of people to a very active club with a very successful ham fest, giving out our scholarships to amateurs, and I'm breathless from coming up those stairs.
Well, let me ask you something, Evelyn. When we were downstairs before the meeting, I noticed that you and the president, Carl Jagelski, were signing those papers. Tell us about that scholarship.
Our scholarships, I have them right outside if you want me to bring them in so you can see them.
Yes, why don't you do that? Give an idea of some of the things that the clubs that are larger clubs, such as this one that has many activities, many ways of raising funds, some of the things that they do in public service, not just in the solely ham radio, but how it branches out. For example, Evelyn, tell us about this.
Well, this is just one of the winners of the scholarship, and we give out these scholarships from the proceeds of our ham fest that we run every year.
We're going to find out about that in a minute, too.
Okay, and these go to amateur radio operators in the state of Florida. They write in and apply for the scholarship, which is administered by the Foundation for Amateur Radio for us, and we get a $1,000 scholarship. 2 or 3 a year, depending on how much we make on the show after we've paid those bills.
Right, well, that's fantastic. Now, the Hamboree is an event where hams from all over, not just Florida, all over the world, right?
Absolutely.
Come here, and this the Hamboree concept goes back how far? Tell us how it got started.
Oh, well, this is our 35th year of running the Hamboree. And it just started with a group of hams standing around talking like we are tonight and saying, why don't we have an amateur radio gathering in Dade County? We have the largest number of amateurs in the state of Florida right down here. And that's how it started. We had attendance of about 1,000. We had 15 exhibit booths. Today we have an attendance of 14,000 with 200 exhibit booths and 1,000 tables.
Quite a difference. I well remember at Bayfront Park, the early beginnings, and what a contrast.
Right.
I've seen those. Now, the Hamboree, of course, occurs in February.
Right.
Okay, and that's every year this occurs, and who all comes to the Hambury?
Well, you mean we have Europe, Asia, the islands, and the United States. We'll have as many as 30 and 40 countries represented here.
Okay,
and every state in the Union in the United States will be represented. Canada, Mexico.
Okay, and you mentioned, of course, you are an official of the American Radio Relay League, and this convention is affiliated with the American Radio Relay League.
Oh, absolutely. We call it the ARRL Hamfest of the Americas this year.
That's fantastic. And Jerry was telling us a little bit about some of the contests that are going to be going on, the special event in December for the visiting 30 presidents. So this club, I would say, is probably one of the most active in the area, or probably in the state, as far as all of your involvement in public service and things that benefit the general public as well as the...
That's true. It's a great example, I think, of a general interest amateur radio club. It doesn't have one primary interest. The others are very valuable in the things they do. The clubs that sponsor the repeaters and so forth, they are very, very valuable in their own way to amateur radio. But I like the idea of a general interest amateur radio club so that they can come here and learn all about all the different phases of amateur radio and then pick the one that they want to participate in.
Oh, that's good. So you would say then that the general idea of belonging to a ham radio club is a good one?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I believe that a radio club is your step into amateur radio. After that license, the next thing you should do is join a radio club.
It really opens up more horizons that a person on his own might never come in contact with.
It does. You meet people. You may be apprehensive when you first get that license to get out there and try the DXing or the contesting, where if you come into a radio club, you meet the people that are in it. You're welcome, just as Jerry is doing with our new members and our new operators, bringing them into the contesting in a manner in which they're within the amateur radio club family and are seeing the experts do it, but then seeing people that encourage them when they make their stumbling mistakes, as you and I did when we first started. Right. I didn't just stumble, I fell a lot of times.
Didn't we all?
Cameraman knows that.
Yeah, the cameraman knows that. Okay, we're going to be right back after this public service announcement.
5, engine start, 3 good engines up and burning, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff of the Space Shuttle Atlantis and the Gamma Ray Observer.
Hi, I'm astronaut Linda Godwin. When our crew flew aboard the Space Shuttle Atlantis, we made friends all over the world as part of the shuttle amateur radio experiment. From orbit 300 miles above the Earth, we met lots of new friends talking on a simple handheld amateur radio, like this one. Our crew earned our amateur radio licenses so we could take part in this interesting activity when we weren't at work aboard the shuttle, and you can too. A technician class amateur radio license can open up a whole new world to you. It's fun and it's easy to do, so go for it. Who knows who you'll meet on the air?
You've enjoyed this visit with the Dade Radio Club here in Miami. We've seen some beautiful equipment here, and obviously this is a club that does a lot of things. And we can't say that this is really the typical amateur club. Obviously they have a lot of beautiful equipment. They run a hamboree which generates income for them to do these things. The club that you might become affiliated with might not even have a station, but you will find a fellowship there, find people of common interest, and these people will be involved in other public service activities. Maybe not to the scale of this one, but they will be involved. And that's what ham radio is all about. There are many, many facets to ham radio. In our other 5 programs, we've seen some of them. We'll be exploring still other aspects in the coming shows that we're going to present to you. We hope you've enjoyed it, and if you're interested in finding out about the Dade Radio Club, joining with them in their meeting, you meet on the first Tuesday of every month here at the Museum of Science in Miami. So, once again, thank you for joining us. We hope you'll come back next time. This is Norman Ward for Miami Springs TV Productions.